Welcome to the Lou Coutinho Show, where we can learn to reimagine our lifestyle.
Dr. Shefali, thank you so much for your time. I'm a fan of your work. I've been following your work for a really long time. We have a lot of people in India also following your work. They were really excited about what's going to be happening. So, Dr. Shefali, renowned clinical psychologist based in New York, best-selling author of the book, The Conscious Parent, and I actually have your new book, The Parenting Map. I've not yet finished the book. I'm halfway through, and I just love what I'm reading. Dr. Shefali, thank you for being on the show. I would love for you to tell our audience what you do and a little bit about the amazing work that you've been doing over the last couple of years.
Sure. So as you said, I'm a clinical psychologist. So that means I work with people almost every day on their problems, on their life issues, and I help them with an East-West approach. I was, of course, raised in India, but studied abroad. And so I integrate Western psychology with Eastern philosophy. And I talk a lot about conscious parenting and mindful living. How can we be more authentic as parents, as humans, so that we can raise more authentic children who know who it is they are and who feel worthy as they are. So I've written 5 books now, and my latest one is the one you showed. It's the Parenting Map, and this one is a how-to, a step-by-step breakdown of how to be a conscious parent.
I love that you use the word conscious, mindful, because when I read through your book, and what I really love about your work, you lead by example. You keep talking about your beautiful daughter, about experiences that you've had. So you make it very real rather than a textbook approach. And that's what I really love about what you write. In this particular book, you mentioned 3 stages and 20 steps. Of course, I want everyone to buy the book and read it. But if you can touch up on those 3 stages and how you've led from stage 1 to 2 to 3, that would be great.
So the 3 stages are really the stages that one needs to take on any journey. So the first stage in any journey is to dismantle the toxic belief systems that you do have. That's the first stage in any awakening, is to look at your belief systems, look at what's blocking you, and to try to break through. So the first stage is about understanding what traditional parenting is, because if you don't understand what traditional parenting is, you won't understand what conscious parenting is. So traditional parenting is the parenting that you and I were raised with, based on fear and domination and control and shame. And conscious parenting does away with all of that. It's a whole new way of parenting your children that doesn't rely on traditional parenting practices. So I talk about that, how traditional parenting talks about raising perfect children who you need to control, who you need to puppeteer through their life. And conscious parenting is so different. And I talk about all that in stage 1. And then stage 2 is about breaking down your own negative patterns of how you communicate, how you interact with others. And I talk about the ego patterns we all have, and the 5 ego patterns we have of you can either be a fighter parent, a fixer parent, a feigner parent, a freezer parent, or a fleer parent. And the reason I do that is not because we can be put into neat categories. It's because you can become aware. Oh my God, I do that. So I'm mostly that. And now I can see myself doing that. And now I can become aware. So becoming aware of our patterns is so important. So that's all about stage 2, breaking down your patterns. And then stage 3 is about truly building resilient connections with our children. How does that look like? How do you begin to validate your children? How do you understand them? How do you relate to them? How do you see them for who it is they are? So this is how the book is laid out. And in that, I give 20 steps, and each step has practice exercises as well.
I love the first stage, and the first couple of lines caught my attention. And I really liked what you wrote about shatter every belief system that you've ever had about parenting and now create and rebuild new ones. I thought that was really powerful. So, I picked up from your book, many of your books where you write about the influence of social media. And, every talk that I do across different countries in the world, the one question that we constantly get is, as parents, how do we manage our children, our teenagers, with the influence of social media? So over the years, with your experience, Dr. Shefali, what are those top 3 or 4 pieces of advice that you would give parents who are going through the social media difficulties with their children?
So it's not easy. It's extremely difficult to raise our children in today's world with the added distraction and the insane amount of stimulation that's out there. Parenting was already difficult when I was a parent, and now I can only imagine how much harder it is with our children today, surrounded by technology. So I think parents need to be extra vigilant. If you have young children, you try even harder to keep them off the screens, because screens create a disconnection. And what young children, and all the way till at least they're 15, 16, need the most is parental presence. Parent is distracted or the children are on screens, then we're losing out on the magic of that interpersonal connectedness, and we need to regain that. So parents need to be very conscious about how much time they're spending with their children, how focused are they, how much presence are they showing up with, because this is what children need more than anything. It's easy to send your kid off to a nanny. It's easy to send your kid off to go watch TV or be on a screen for hours, but that's not optimal for their brain development and for their psychology. They need the parental real life interpersonal connection in order to thrive. And the more you outsource your parenting when they are young to lots of random people, and I'm not saying a community is not good, it's very good, but I'm talking about just chaotic random people, or to screens, which are really not even people, impersonal interactions. Our children's brain development will get addicted, because the way these screens are, algorithmically designed is to create this addiction. And then children will not know how to deal with real life, will not know how to be with a real human being and tolerate the dissatisfaction that inevitably comes with dealing with a human being versus a machine. So we have to be very careful, very vigilant, have strict rules, strict boundaries, strict guidelines. I always say no screens till teens, because that's the ideal, that we want to wait for our children to grow up so that they can handle this before, they are thrown into this world of technology.
So what I hear coming out from you is discipline. There has to be that level of discipline. This is where parents can either choose to be friends or parents to their kids. How do they draw that kind of boundary? Because let me give you an example. Back in India, today you have the mom and the dad working, traveling, building businesses, empires, all of that stuff. And the kids are home with nannies. I'm not judging the situation. These are parents who have dreams as well. But what's that advice that we give to parents to consciously bring in that discipline, the time with those kids? How do you balance that when both the parents are working, jet setting around the world, and they have kids at home? And like you said, the easiest thing is put them behind a screen and there aren't no problems.
Yeah. Well, then the children will grow up knowing that they're disconnected to their parents. I have a friend right now who can tell me right now in her 50s that she grew up with nannies, and she remembers, and it had an effect on her. So parents have to make a choice. Being a parent is not an easy thing. So if you've made a choice to be a parent, you need to put in that energy and investment and time and commitment and care. And yeah, if you want to have a career, then you're going to pay. You can't have everything. Right now, women especially have this idea that you can have everything. And I say, yes, you can, but not at the same time. So when I was a mother, for example, an early mother, for the first 10 years, I never traveled. It was a big deal if I went away from my child, because that was my primary focus. And I took pride in that. And that was my greatest quote unquote career. And then when I could, I began, leaving the house more and more. But you as a parent, you have to make your priorities and choose. And this is what children need. So I'm so sorry, but you had the child. Now you have to do what the child needs. It's like getting upset with your puppy dog because your puppy dog goes to pee everywhere. Well, then don't get a puppy dog. So, women cannot have it all, and men cannot have it all either. Somebody has to do something. So it can be the man staying at home, that's fine. Although women are way better at this than men, because we're just biologically driven and wired to be better at connecting. But whoever it is, somebody needs to be there, because the more the child grows up around impersonal people or things or objects, then the more their brain development will suffer.
Dr. Shefali, this is powerful. I've spoken to so many counselors and people, they try to find the middle way to make the parents happy and the kids happy. But what you said is just so honest, and we know it. We know it within us that it's the truth, that you got to make a choice. Because a lot of counselors out there today try to live, you need to look at you're happy.
Right. Yeah. The parent did become happy by having a child. Whose choice was it? The child's choice. The child didn't tell you, please have me, you're going to make me happy. The child didn't make a choice. So it was the parent's choice to have the child. So now the parent made the choice. Now be happy with that choice. See, the parent is not happy because now the parent wants the next thing, the next Lamborghini, the next Bentley, the next great thing. No, now you have a child. Now you have a noose around your neck for life. So go deal with it now. But you wanted to have the child. Now don't complain that, oh, my child needs me. My child misses me. The other day I was with a young mother in counseling, and she was like, my child cries all the time. So I said, how old is your child? And she's like, oh, my child is 6 months old. So I said, okay. So what is the problem? She's like, my child cries all the time. So I said, yeah, I know. What is the problem here? And she couldn't get it, right? And then I had to give it to her. I was like, children cry, okay? Children cry a lot. And your job is not to give the child to the nanny when the child cries, because then she was saying that the child doesn't like me and the child is with the nanny. And I said, well, because you're not soothing the child through the crying, you're handing the child to the nanny. So the child is associating soothing with this other person. It's not the child doesn't like you, it's you don't like the child. So it's very convenient for us to say, oh, my child needs me. Children are needy. You have to do the work. You don't get a free pass once you have a child. Your job is not done. Your job is just starting. And guess what? It never ends. So I think parents don't realize how hard parenting is. And it is incredibly, incurably, infuriatingly difficult. But, you wanted to be a parent. It is the most difficult job in the world. And there's a way to do it, to make it as less dysfunctional for the child as possible. I'm not saying you can make it without any dysfunctions. I've totally messed up my child, 100% messed it up. But I tried my best to make it as less dysfunctional and quickly learned, right? When I saw I was messing up, I went to serious meditation. I went to serious self-reflection, which is where I came up with all this work, unconscious parenting, because I realized I was an unconscious parent. This is about me waking up, and I want other parents to wake up as well. But it takes a lot of courage to do this.
I read about your struggles in your book with your daughter, and I just love how honest you've been about it in your book, your own struggles and how you've evolved. And, you're a clinical psychologist. There are so many fields that you could practice in, but yet you took parenting because of your own example. But, talking about the whole nanny situation, there was a question that I wanted to ask you as well. Today, a lot of parents come and say, hey, Luke, I've done so much for my child, and now she just turns around, or he turns around and says, I hate you, mom. I wish I didn't have you as a mom. I wish you were not living. What does it take to reach this point, the relationship between a teenager child and a mom, where there's words of hatred used? I can understand, I said to my mom when I was punished from my soccer match and I really wanted to play that match, I said, I hate you, mom. That was once in my life. But today we have parents who say, look, my kids are always, I hate you. I don't want to see your face. Where does this come from? Is it a feeling of
If it's once in a while, right? Which is every teenager's rite of passage. I said it to my mom. My daughter's at least said it once to me. I remember saying it to my mom, my poor mom. I said it to her when I was 12 years old. I hate you. She gave me one tight slap on my face when I said it, because in India, that's what you do. So, but I think that's a rite of passage, right? To say I hate you. It's almost normal to say it. But so if it's chronic, then we have a situation where the child is feeling very disconnected from the parent. And that is the parents' wake-up call to go, wow, what have I done? What is my part here to create this disconnect? It's up to me to cement this. It's not up to the child. And I have to find a way to reconnect. I can go on my knees. I can say sorry. I can take them to therapy. I can take them to Paris. I don't know what I need to do, but I need to do something to correct this relationship fast. But many times, parents don't correct it fast enough. And as time goes on, that bond becomes more and more distant. And finally, the bond, it may not completely break, but it can really weaken before it's too late. So parents need to be hyper vigilant about this bond. And that's what I teach in this book, The Parenting Map. It's all about how to strengthen this bond so much by 10 years old that it's going to take a lot to break it. And then you strengthen it again all through your life. But let's strengthen the bond. And if parents are listening to this and it's already they're feeling, oh my God, it's already too late. No, it's not. You can, again, start right now. But let's really put in the effort. It takes a tremendous effort for the child to feel connected. It's not easy. It's not a given. We thought in parenting, we could just love our children and then they would just love us back. It's not a given standard practice. You have to build this bond constantly. And that's what my book shows.
I read about your chapter on punishment as well. We punish kids in different ways by taking away love, or slapping them, or shouting at them, or comparing them with other people, with other children. So what's your take on that in terms of what are the best solutions if we're not going to do punishment?
All this, strict punishment kind of attitude, control, heavy-handedness never, ever, ever works. You're either creating another violent person, or you're creating a person who's going to have extremely low self-esteem, most likely both. And if they're not violent to others, they'll be violent to themselves. So we have to get rid of that kind of attitude to our children, and we have to find more conscious ways to respond. And I talk about that in my book. I talk about how you can reframe the mistake, how you can see the jewel, how you can find the strength, how you can create win-win situations. There are lots of things we can do besides yell and scream at our children that are going to have long-lasting positive impacts on our children.
Right. Great. So when we talk about punishments, then, it moves straight into today a lot of, single parents, single moms and single dads. So what's your advice as a clinical psychologist when you deal with single parents trying to bring up their children? Because sometimes children play the parents against each other, and all of that stuff. What would your top advice be to single parents to continue being a conscious parent, even if they're just one?
Well, we want to raise children with as many positive influences as possible. So we want to try to get, our neighbors, our good friends, because it's hard to do it alone. Single parents have so much responsibility. It's so difficult to do it alone. But while I'm saying that, the parents should get other people, I don't want the single parent to feel that's another thing they need to do. I also want single parents to feel emboldened that they are also a lot. Then they may not be the absolute enough, but nobody is ever enough. But they are a lot, and not to underestimate who they are just because they're single. Don't worry, you have a lot of power in you to make a lot of positive change in your child's life. Obama's mother was a single mother for most of her life. So don't underestimate the power of one conscious parent. So read up on my books, try to get the tools and strategies so that who you are is better than 10 people put together, right? You can have the power of 10. You just need to equip yourself with that.
I think that's powerful, Dr. Shefali. A lot of people in my audience were very interested in this one particular piece of advice that I'm sure you can, give it to us. Today parents are afraid that communication channels between them and their children will break as their children grow up. They want their children to, a lot of parents say that, oh, if you're going to do drugs, tell me, I'll be okay with it, but tell me. But they want this open, honest communication. So what are tips to parents to consciously build an open communication with their children so that, children can reach out to them, teenagers can reach out to them, even in cases where they're going through a lot of peer pressure or bullying, or they're in the wrong company? What do you think it takes to build that relationship?
Well, it takes the parent to really not be a controlling parent. And it's really easy to say, oh, I want an open relationship. But then you're extremely controlling and judging, and you're conditional in your love. You're like, what? You got a B grade, right? Why did you get an A grade? Guess what? Right there, you close the communication. So when children sense that you're easygoing, you're relaxed, you're cool, then they'll come to you. And in fact, then they may not even do much wrong, because a lot of quote unquote rebellious things they do is actually in reaction to the parents' high control. They actually may do nothing, right? I was an extremely, you could say, liberal parent. And you would think my kid would be a total drug addict right now. And she's nothing, not even alcohol. And I'm like, what? You can have a glass of wine, and she won't do it. So many times, our children's wild ways come from a reaction, a complete bouncing off our control. And in fact, the more relaxed we are, the less they feel the need to explore themselves in these self-destructive ways. And so it all comes from the parents' attitude of ease and comfort. Children want to tell you everything, but you're the one who acts like so controlling and so fear-based and so shaming that they stop telling you. They want to tell you everything, but you make it too hard for them to tell you. So when you're totally relaxed and comfortable with the ordinary, comfortable with the imperfections of yourself and your children will come to you with their stories.
Dr. Shefali, do you think this controlling part of parents comes from their own insecurities and their own fears? Because, parents never get trained to be a parent. And sometimes before they even have a child, they're already broken. Maybe both partners or one of them. I know this can be corrected over time, but broken parents bringing up children, what's your advice for them? How can they start their healing journey to be more conscious? Because they're broken themselves. And I feel a lot of their insecurities are projected onto children.
Yes, so absolutely. It comes from the parents' own brokenness, the parents' own insecurity and need to have control and feel good. So you need to, as a parent, work on yourself. And that's why I write the books I do. This latest book, The Parenting Map, is that book you wish your children came home from the hospital with. You have to learn to be a parent. You have to learn to heal yourself. And you cannot just do this willy-nilly. Most of us have been winging it. And we've been told that you got to control your children. But this is not the most conscious move forward. The most conscious move is to learn about how to be a conscious parent, practice it, apply it, stop blaming your children for everything, take responsibility and accountability. And that's when the relationship between you and your children will change.
I think that's amazing. I'm excited for everyone to get a copy of your book and actually go through all of these steps, because I like how you've broken them down with simplicity. And it makes so much of sense with the examples that you've used. Dr. Shefali, can we do 2 short questions more? Are you good right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
2 short questions, yes.
Absolutely. Dr. Shefali, since I practice nutrition and integrative medicine, I have the obvious question that parents come to me with. It's a constant fight getting the kids to eat veggies and fruits. It's a constant fight at the dinner table, the lunch table. So what's your advice as a parent, as a clinical psychologist, for parents to consciously, involve their kids into building healthy habits, dietary as well as exercise and lifestyle?
Well, you can be creative, right? You put in the zucchini in the bread. You squeeze an orange in the apple juice. You hide the fruits and vegetables in some creative way. You make it a game. Who can have the green veggies juice faster than the next? You have to be creative, because our natural tendency is to want sugar, right? So you have to model it, right? You have to model it at home. You have to make it a priority. You have to be creative. You have to put in the effort. I did all of that, banging my head against the wall, begging my daughter to have her green juice. But I tried to make it fun and creative and tasty. And it's not easy, but you keep trying. I think in India, at least, I've noticed Indian children are actually pretty good about eating pretty well. I mean, that's because Indian food is so delicious. So if you make it tasty enough, I think children will eat it, but you have to put in that effort.
Okay. Dr. Shefali, I saw you on the Oprah show when you look after yourself, you're fit, you maintain yourself. What's your message to all the parents out there? Because, parents usually kind of lose their own health along the way. I'm too busy with the kids. I'm too busy with work. You obviously look after yourself. So what are the top three things that you do for your health, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual? I would love for you to share that with our audience, your personal journey.
Yeah. So for me, really, my therapy is my exercise. So I don't really ignore it every day. I try to do it every day, something every day. So you have to understand the power of exercise in your life. And exercise is not just physical, it's mental. So exercise has been very important to me. Eating very healthy and clean is very important to me. And, meditating, being alone, reflecting, staying quiet. These are the things that charge up my mind and my soul. And it is therapeutic. And because it's therapeutic for me, it then becomes therapeutic for everybody around me. So you have to do these things. These are like non-negotiables, I think, in life. Exercise has to become a non-negotiable. And if it's not, we're going to be in trouble.
Absolutely. Now, I love how you started off by saying you took a 10-year break, from your career to bring up your daughter. And even doing that, you've created such an amazing career and so much of, goodness that you brought to the world through your books and your fabulous reels that we're all addicted to. Okay, so before we end this, Dr. Shefali, if you had like 2 or 3 or 4 minutes where the entire world's attention was on you right now, what message would you leave them with?
That the greatest gift you can give to yourself and anyone else is to heal yourself.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. Shefali. If people want to reach out to you, of course, we have all of your websites and everything, in the footnotes. But if people want to reach out to you, do you consult with people? How can they get in touch with, your team if they want to have conversations with you, if they want to consult with you?
Yeah, so I do private consultations and they can book that on the website. But I also have a coaching institute. So if people want to learn to do what I do an online 5-month coaching institute and I train people. It's a fabulous institute. So many people from India do join from all over the world because it's online. So they can look into that. I open the doors twice a year for that.
Awesome. Dr. Shefali, thank you so much for your time. And thank you for all the powerful information you've given us.
Thank you so much.
Stay tuned for more. We're going to continue our journey, learning, sharing, and evolving.